Hi, Poppy here again. Oh, it's been so hot. I don't know when this heat spell is going to end, but I'm surviving okay. Everybody else seems to be doing all right. Anyway, today, this story is kind of touching for me. I don't know why, it just really hits me a little harder. But I want you to know that in Possum Trot, we had, and I say had, a little thin lady that always had the sweetest smile on her face, so pleasant to everybody, but never talked much. She would just answer a question, yes or no, and agree with you, and that's about all she would say, even when she was shopping. And she always wore beautiful white gloves. And we thought, well, okay, even no matter what else she was wearing, she always had beautiful white gloves on. And I would even see her up at the grocery store, and she'd be picking out fruit and feeling them and picking out different kinds of foods and getting her milk and stuff, but always had the white gloves on and never said much except hello if she would acknowledge you. And so the other day, I was walking in front of her house, past her house, and I noticed there was a car there, and then some other cars came, and even an ambulance came, and I thought, oh no, what happened to that little lady? Something has happened. So I went up the front walk toward the porch, and her son was coming out, and he was probably, I don't know, 25, 30 years old. And he was coming out, and I said, I'm a neighbor from a ways down. Do you mind if I ask if there's anything I can do or what happened? And he said, oh, it's my mother. She passed away last night in her sleep. They think maybe she had a heart attack or something. And I said, oh no, I am so sorry. She just seemed so sweet to me. She never said much, but she had the sweetest expression on her face all the time. And I said, do you mind if I ask you a kind of a personal question? He said, no, go ahead. I said, every place I saw her, no matter where it was, whatever store she was in, or just in front of her house, or out in her garden, or wherever she was always wearing her white gloves. And I was just wondering, is that some kind of a something that she just liked doing, a fad or something, or what was the idea of the white gloves all the time? And he said, well, I'll tell you the story. I don't talk about it too much, and she never wanted to talk about it. But when I was little, we lived in California and the southern part, and we had a great earthquake that came, and it just shook the house. We had a 2-story house, but it shook the house something fierce, and it tumbled things all over the place. And so my mother went under the table, was holding on, and holding on to the furniture and everything else. Well, it didn't last. It always lasts. Think it's longer than what it really is. And he said, and then she ran upstairs to see if I was all right. I was still in my crib, and I was just a few months old. But she immediately, as soon as she could get her legs working, she ran upstairs, and she had discovered that a kerosene lamp that was on a shelf near my crib had shaken off the shelf, and it was nighttime, so it was burning. And she said that kerosene lamp fell off of that shelf, and it dumped into my crib, and it caught my crib on fire. It caught the curtains on fire, and there were flames everywhere. And he said, my mother, and there was smoke. Kerosene makes a lot of black smoke, and my mother came through that black smoke and was like crawling even, but she reached into the crib, and my crib was on fire and my blankets were on fire. He said, this is what I'm told from my big sister. But my blankets were on fire, and she didn't care. She reached in to those burning blankets, and she picked me up, and she was coughing. She couldn't see anything, but she picked me up, and she fell on the floor on top of me, so I was kind of covered from the thick smoke and everything. And she was laying there with me underneath her, and by the time the fire department got there, it was kind of a ways away. My sister told them what was going on up in the bedroom, and they immediately came up in the ladder and they rescued me, and then they rescued my mama too. She was laying on the floor, and her hands were so badly burned. It was awful. And he said, and they carried my mama down too. But, and they tried putting stuff on her hands to stop the burning feeling and stuff. But they took her to the hospital, and I was fine. She had sheltered me from that fire, and I was fine. But my mama didn't come out so fine. She had lost some fingers on her hand because that kerosene just had soaked in. And he said she lost some of her fingers, and her hands were badly burned and badly scarred. And so after that, it was a long recovery, but after that, she never wanted to show her hands to people. She always wore pretty white gloves wherever she went, and she never ever wanted to talk about that fire. Never. And he said that's why she wears or wore the white gloves all the time. And you know what, Poppy, he said, to me, those were the most beautiful hands in the world, because she did it for me, saved my life. And you know, that's the end of my story for Possum Trot. But you know, that's what Jesus did for us. And we can read in Isaiah chapter 53, and even a little bit in chapter 52 of Isaiah. It says that Jesus was beaten for us beyond recognition of even being a man. And he was nailed to a cross. Nails put through his hands to the cross, and we all know the story of the cross, and the blood flowed down, and they put a spear in his side, and they beat him to death. And Isaiah 53 says, he was wounded for our transgressions, our sins. He was bruised, beaten for our iniquities, our sins. And the chastisement is punishment. The punishment of our sin was upon his shoulders, upon him as he was hanging there on the cross. And by his wounds, we are healed. We're healed from all the ugliness of sin. Healed from all that sin involves, because it's by grace we are saved in spite of sin. And that's what Jesus did for us on the cross. It's like the boy said about his mom, they were the most beautiful hands in the world. And to me, remember when Thomas said, oh, I don't believe he's alive. After he rose from the dead, they met in the upper room, and Thomas said, I don't believe it. and Jesus appeared. He came in before them, and Jesus showed him. He said, I won't believe it unless I see the nail prints in his hands. Jesus showed him, and there they were. And Thomas said, oh, my Lord and my God. He did that for Thomas. He did that for you and for me. To kill our sin, got every whiplash, every nail, got every beating, every stabbing it deserved. And he took it all for us. By his stripes, his wounds, we are healed. And that's what the way this man's mama did for him. She at all cost went up and wanted to save her baby boy. Okay, I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.